Happy Tuesday, everyone. It's a crazy Tuesday here. We've got some mainframe mania going on. HPE is acquiring again. They're not the only ones. And there's rumors of a new Apple Mac Super Mini. We'll find out. You're watching Techstrong Gang. Hi, everyone. It's Alan Schimmel, Techstrong Gang. Welcome to our show on this beautiful Tuesday. We've got a lot to go over with you and some great people to go over it with you. Let me introduce you to our gang members for this morning. First of all, joining us remotely are the Stevens. One is Stephen with a V, and I think we've done this before. I'm getting a little deja vu. And one is Stephen with a PH. Not a PhD, mind you, but a PH. Let me first introduce you to Stephen with a D. He is a CTA at Futurum Group, and he's also our resident mainframe and infrastructure expert, among other things. Steven Dickens. Steven, how are you? It's good to see you.
Hey, Alan. I think I'll go by Mr. Dickens just to not confuse the listeners today. Whenever Stephen I do calls, it gets complicated.
Stephen with a V. We may call you V. And then, but I appreciate it. Maybe we'll do Mr. Dickens. They'll mistake you for Charles.
I like the sound of that. I like the sound of
that. And then joining us, Stephen with the PH. He's also the founder of Tech Field Day, and he still runs the Tech Field Day events. They're great events. He's actually going to talk about one he did recently. Is our friend Stephen Foskett. Hey, Stephen, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me on. Always happy to be part of the gang. Happy to talk tech with my good friend, Mr. Dickens, as well. For now, I think you're going to have to basically confuse us both by making us think you're talking about our dads. So you can call me Mr. Foskett and him Mr. Dickens.
Okay, well, we'll see how that goes over. Let me introduce you to the rest of our gang, though. Adding a little sustainability to our show today is our sustainability editor and analyst, Bonnie Schneider. Hey, Bonnie, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Alan.
And then joining us, he was back from the Keys. I think he left his shirt on. He must have just arrived. Our Chief Content Officer, Michael Vizard. Hey, Mike.
You didn't hear the brakes squealing?
Yeah. Well, easy, man, right? All's good in the Keys. Don't worry, be happy. Anyway, guys, thank you all for joining us. Thank you out here for watching us today on The Gang. We're going to kick things off with a block we're calling Mainframe Mania. Stephen Foskett, Mr. Foskett, you were recently out at the Vulnerable Share Conference, and I don't remember how many years Share is going on, but it's like 25, 30 years, maybe more, right?
I think it's
a lot
twice
longer than that. It's the oldest.
The platform is 60 years old, so figure.
Yeah. But anyway, Stephen, you were there. You did a Tech Field Day around it, did you not?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Man, I got to say, so Mr. Dickens invited me to Share back in March. Really loved the experience. I've got to say, the mainframe folks, they're a lot of fun. They're just cool people. And it's not the same people you might think when you think mainframe. First off, I do have to admit, I am not a mainframe guy. I arrived on the scene in the open system space. I was a Unix sysadmin. I got involved in virtualization, storage, etc. But I like to pat myself on the back and say that I'm smart enough to understand that the mainframe still has a place in business, and boy, does it ever. I think that it's very obvious talking to the folks at Share, some of the incredible people that we had on our delegate panel. Mark Wilson and I were talking about this, Derek Britton. It is incredible the value and the importance that the mainframe remains in the enterprise. And it's also incredible the number of companies, the number of products, and frankly, the modernity of the products that are involved. So, for example, at Share this year, both of the Share conferences this year, most of the talk was on AI. A lot of the talk was on DevOps. We're talking containerization. We're talking building out web scale and modern microservices applications. We're talking about basically the same things. What I said to Derek at the show was, it's like all the nouns are different, but the verbs are the same, because everybody's talking about doing the same things, but all of the technologies just have a completely different name. And frankly, that's one of the things that came up in our discussions, that it's a little difficult, it's a little forbidding to get involved in the mainframe space simply because there are different names for everything. But that being said, we heard from, for example, Broadcom, and they're talking about basically telemetry and modernizing operations. Everything Broadcom said about mainframe could have been said by them about open systems. And in fact, one of the things that struck me about the Broadcom presentation specifically was that all of their discussion about basically focusing on the needs of their key companies, innovating in mainframe on new ways to accelerate DevOps and transformation, digital transformation. All of these things are exactly what Broadcom's going to be doing with VMware in the open system space as well. And the products also kind of reminded me a little bit of what they're going to be doing and what they are announcing on the other side of the coin. The same thing was true with BMC. Broadcom's probably the biggest independent software vendor. Stephen certainly knows the market better than I, but BMC may be number 2. And boy, do they have a lot of great products as well. They were showcasing AI, a really great use of generative AI to basically examine COBOL code and describe how it works and what it's doing to help modernize code, examining systems and describing how they work with generative AI to figure out how we can make sure that these things are sustainable, that we can bring on a new generation of operators in the future. And then the third one, this one I absolutely love, pop-up mainframe. One of the challenges, one of the reasons that mainframe is so forbidding is because it's not like you can just get a mainframe at home and start tinkering with it. It's not like you can get one, spin one up in the cloud for dev and test, but you can now with pop-up. And that was the cool thing. So, the fact that they were able to basically bring an entire full-featured mainframe environment online on demand for dev test is really transformative. It's a small company with a big idea. Stephen, I hope I haven't stepped in it here. What do you think about the mainframe world?
Well, I think going reverse order of what you mentioned there, people don't think of startups. They don't think of new companies. They don't think of people getting seed rounds, looking to raise capital, and kind of that whole VC ecosystem for the mainframe. Gary Thornhill, the CEO of PopUp, is doing exactly that. So when people think the mainframe, they're not thinking that kind of VC-driven innovation ecosystem. They're absolutely wrong. I'm talking to numerous small, sort of new, innovative startups that are entering the space. So I think what Gary's doing is fantastic. It fixes a known problem, democratizes access to to developer-driven tools and the ability to get on the platform. So Gary's doing great work there. As you mentioned with BMC, involved with them in that launch. AI ops, bringing generative AI to development. That's the same story we're getting on the cloud and the open system side. So to go back to your point, all the things that are going on in the mainframe echo the things that are going on in the wider industry. I think bringing generative AI to code description and code analysis, great initial use case. We're seeing that with Copilot. We're seeing that with Q. We're seeing that with all the other things ads on the cloud. BMC doing exactly the same. And then from a Broadcom point of view, open telemetry, working with the open source community to be able to make the mainframe observable and discoverable by OTel-driven tools like Splunk. That's exactly the same conversation I'm having with Splunk about all the rest of the things that they're doing. So I think if people are going into this thinking mainframe, this is legacy tech that hasn't changed since the 90s, absolutely reset your expectations, do some discovery, and you'll find out that is absolutely not the case.
And in terms of the attendees, too, I want to point out, sorry, Alan, just jump on you. I was expecting it to be just a bunch of old guys. And it's not just a bunch of old guys. So I want to put that bug in your bonnet too. If you go to share, yeah, there's some old guys, but there's some old guys at all the conferences. There's some young people. It is not what you think.
So look, we've been covering the mainframe here at Techstrong for many, many years. And Stephen Foskett, I say, welcome to the party, the pool, the water's just fine, jump in, right? Still today, dollar for dollar, penny for penny, the most reliable, stable, secure platform in the world remains the mainframe. And what I find fascinating is the two of you just spent damn near 10 minutes talking and you didn't mention IBM. IBM's not sitting on their hands here either.
It's just maybe a factor of timing. I know what they're doing. You may want to look at hot chips in a couple of weeks' time. I'm just under embargo, Alan, and can't say any more than what I've just said.
I got you. But you know what? IBM still does a great job there. And we do, we work, and Stephen, I know you helped, Steven Dickens, you helped found the Open Mainframe Group over part of the Linux Foundation, and some of the great work, they've got about 20-something projects under their umbrella, the largest of which is Zoe, which Steve Foskett, I don't know if you had a chance to see anything at Share on Zoe, but, that is bringing unbelievable kinds of modernization. I mean, it's allowing us to do everything you do in the cloud and on systems at the mainframe. So it's a vibrant community. The education systems, in India, where they have more kids taking computer science than we have kids here in the US, it's not a secret there that if you want a job, go learn COBOL, go learn mainframe programming, because there's no shortage of jobs available in these areas. So yes, we've covered the mainframe on DevOps.com forever as well. It is vibrant. All of the companies. One other company that we didn't mention that we work a lot with there is Rocket. Rocket Software, another, maybe not as big as BMC and Broadcom. But
since the acquisition of the assets from OpenText, there's certainly Milan is. I mean, that's the other thing. That was a $2.2 billion acquisition of assets from OpenText. So we're seeing M&A activity, we're seeing startups, we're seeing a lot of innovation in this space for sure. So Milan Shetty over there at Rocket's doing great work to integrate that company. They've got a new CMO, a new VP of product marketing. There's a lot going on with those guys to really energize the space. So I don't know where they are now revenue-wise, because BMC and Rocket are both private. So I've kind of got a rough idea, but I'd probably put that as almost a tie at their mainframe.
Really?
Revenue.
That big, Stephen?
Yeah. With that acquisition, that was about a 700 million revenue annually.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, I'd have to go and sort of dig and triangulate, but it's close.
The OpenText mainframe business was in itself purchased from Micro Focus.
Yeah.
It was part of the Micro Focus deal.
Yeah, that's the flow.
Which I think HPE had for
which before that was HPE. So if all things go back to HPE, we'll talk more about HPE in a bit. But
Mr. Dickens, I'd love to get your opinion on this. So one of the things you see all the time these days is people showing up talking about how they're going to use Gen AI to transform code, and they typically point to COBOL, and then they say we're going to convert that into Java. It's not clear to me if they're moving off the mainframe or if they just want to run Java because it's easier to find Java developers. But what is your sense of what languages are driving applications on the mainframe these days?
Well, I mean, you've obviously got the greatest hits. You've got the COBOL, you've got the PL1. There's a lot of Java that runs on the mainframe. It's been running on the mainframe for a long time. Arguably runs 2x faster than it runs on other systems because of the garbage collection and some of the other sort of performance characteristics of the underlying hardware. So I don't think it's a Java runs somewhere else, COBOL runs on the mainframe type discussion, but bringing, we're seeing this from IBM with Watson Code Assistant, we're seeing that from BMC. We're seeing it from there's a whole ecosystem. We work a lot with a company called a Verisource. We're working with a Stadia. There's a number of different people in this ecosystem that are using generative AI tools to do code discovery, code sort of rewrite, ultimately to get that to something like Java. There's a challenge with that whole space of what's the Java that you actually create. There's this fantastic word called JOBOL, which is kind of Java that's not really Java, that's kind of structured like COBOL but written in Java, which doesn't really help the equation any at all. So you've got to, it's not just a straight transcription over into Java. You've actually got to use the benefits of Java. So it's a bit more complicated than that when you dig into it. But I think the point is, if all you're doing is just moving one language to another language, the way I describe that is French better than German, or is German better than Spanish? Kind of what did you get? If you're spending 5 years of your life to move a COBOL application to Java and you did nothing else, then you just
do it just for what's sake. I agree.
Yeah, what are you achieving?
There's got to be a payoff on that.
So, yeah. Mr. Foskett, what was the mood of the conference? Because the mainframe community has gone from, we are IT royalty, pomp and circumstance, to quote B.B. King, nobody loves me but my mother and she's jiving too. So where are they now emotionally? What did you kind of feel from the conference?
Well, I certainly do feel a little frustration from some of the folks at the conference. There's definitely a little Rodney Dangerfield in there as well. No respect. Look at all the stuff we do. Look at everything, how important we are. But at the same time, I also caught a sense of humility from them. I think that the biggest sense that I got was a little bit of kind of gnashing of teeth and hair pulling over what's going to happen with all this space in the future. How are we going to attract the next generation of folks in here? Two of the folks around the delegate table are actually working at universities, and as well as Mr. Wilson over in the UK, working with mainframe boot camps to help bring young people in and help get them trained up, not just on COBOL, but on the entire mainframe environment. I definitely think that they have the understanding and the message and the right focus in terms of attracting young people and new talent. And man, to echo what Alan said earlier about in India, if you're coming out of university and you really want to get a job that pays well and is stable and is with a big name company, let me tell you, don't study, whatever, the modern stuff. Get in there and study COBOL and get used to the mainframe environment, because you will have a fantastic job that will be stable and will pay a lot of money for a long time. And I think that's kind of the frustration, that there's not more young people coming into the space, even though it's such an enticing job opportunity.
And on that front, the Open Mainframe Project, the Linux Foundation people, they have an amazing education program going on both here in the U.S. as well as internationally, and a mentorship and everything else. But you know what? We're almost out of time for this. But Stephen Foskett, excuse me. Steve, for people maybe who want to catch the Tech Field Day from Share, that's available on the Tech Field Day YouTube channel, I believe, correct?
Yeah, just go to YouTube/Tech Field Day. There's a playlist right there of all the Share videos. There's also we have two delegate roundtable discussions where basically no presentations, just delegates talking about this, as well as some podcasts. So do check that out. A lot of great stuff over there. Thanks for giving us the opportunity to present it to the audience here.
Not a problem. Thank you for bringing it up. And I know it made me happy. I like talking mainframe, and I know Steven Dickens gets positive about talking about mainframes. Hey, we're going to take a break here on Techstrong Gang. We're going to come back. HPE made some news about an acquisition recently, company I'm familiar with. We're going to talk about that. You're watching Techstrong Gang.
All right, folks, we're back and we're talking about HPE's move to acquire Morpheus Data. They've been a player in the hybrid cloud space for a while now. And of course, HPE is in the middle of trying to acquire Juniper Networks. And it seems like, Mr. Foskett, we'll start with you, that HPE is kind of quietly been reinventing itself for the last year or two through some acquisitions. What's your assessment of what's going on with these folks? Because it seems like they're making a lot of progress. They have that GreenLake service, and it's not your father's HPE for sure.
Yeah, that's true. And I've got to say that quietly is the right way to put it. I'm not hearing a lot of chest pounding and announcements and so on from HPE, though, of course, they are keeping analysts up to date with what they're doing. And they're definitely making progress. But it's not like they're out there, shouting this from the mountaintops. Still, boy, GreenLake, everything I'm hearing is GreenLake is seeing incredible traction. It's seen as the class act in the enterprise OpEx infrastructure space. And HPE has made some incredible acquisitions. I mean, we talked about Juniper, which of course is not completed, but is coming. And Morpheus, boy, I am very familiar with Morpheus. They launched the company at Tech Field Day. They've come back to Tech Field Day repeatedly over time, and they have an incredible product. So I'm really excited to talk about it.
Mr. Dickens, I know you've been following this whole cloud space for a long time now. Morpheus Data, it seems like it was early on this whole hybrid cloud pitch, but hybrid cloud seems to be just multi-cloud, and so we don't have this centralized control plane the way Morpheus Data originally kind of envisioned that the way the world would grow. But is that going to change, or are we going to be multi-cloud forever?
Well, I think the way I describe it is multi-hybrid cloud. So you're going to be on multiple public clouds, you're going to be on-prem, you're going to be in a colo, you're going to be consuming services from an MSP. So I think there's a kind of broader overall trend. Some of the stuff that's going on in the market, the sort of Broadcom VCF type discussion is a kind of big mega trend. A lot of people are looking up and down that stack. We're starting to see Kubernetes get mainstream adoption now. I go to KubeCon and I track my sort of maturity tracking is the sport coat to hoodie ratio, as I call it, for KubeCon. I'm starting to see more sports coats and less hoodies at KubeCon, and that's my kind of barometer for other grown-ups entering the room. So I think you've got some mega trends kind of kicking in. Then you go to what HPE is doing. It's looking at that stack. It's making progress with Ops Ramp. It's looking at that overall stack and going, where are we? What do we need to do? What the sort of standard model, I think, is you're going to be on multiple cloud services. 3 or 4 is probably a minimum for a big enterprise. You're going to have some stuff on-premise. We just talked about the mainframe. We're just talking about other on-premise locations. On-premise isn't what on-premise was 15 years ago. On-premise could be in an Equinix data center. So the whole, and specifically GreenLake plays into that. A bunch of private cloud servers isn't what it was even 5 years ago with what HPE were doing with GreenLake. So you kind of throw all that against the wall. This makes a lot of sense for me as an acquisition.
I think part of the equation, Steven Dickens, that we're leaving, I agree in this cloud everywhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's all different flavors. I think a big part of it that we haven't mentioned is the SaaS cloud, SaaSification, if you will, right? How much of our data is actually being stored in third-party SaaS products, whether you're an enterprise or even a small company like ourselves. I mean, everything's in someone else's.
We don't have a data
stack.
center for the Futurum Group. We're all Gmail. We're all
sure. It's all SaaS.
Google Cloud.
I don't want to say SaaS-y because that means something else today, right?
Yeah,
but we're that too.
Yeah, well, that's SASSY. That's you, but there's SASSE. But anyway, I digress. We've got a lot of data in SaaS. And now we're familiar with Morpheus, Stephen, like you. Morpheus has been a long-time partner, sponsor of Techstrong. So first of all, big congratulations to the Morpheus team, right? Len Fassler once told, it's kind of like boats. The best 2 days of owning a company, the day you buy it and the day you sell it. What's your boat? It's a similar thing with your startup. So congratulations to them on this. I think there's something to be said. So I'm not an industry analyst as Steve Dickens is. I watch what HPE is doing. We all grew up with an HP in our tech stack somewhere, right? But I'm still not 100% sure of what HP, Juniper, the Juniper they bought is not the Juniper I grew up with either. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm not quite sure what HPE is up to.
Well, let me put a vision together for them, because I think one of the things you hear from them, and I'm not quite clear how many organizations are down this path, but what they consistently say is organizations want to spend more of their time on software, building and deploying the software, and less time managing the infrastructure. So, Mr. Dickens, are we seeing a move here where organizations are kind of saying, you know what, let's let the infrastructure guys manage the infrastructure and we'll spend our time on the software?
Yeah, there's definitely a trend there. I mean, we're trying to abstract away. We've got the whole serverless, trying to minimize that infrastructure piece. To go back to what you were saying, Alan, I spent 10 years at what was HP at the time, between 2000 and 2010. I think if you look at them now, back then it was enterprise server storage and networking. When Juniper closes, the networking piece is going to jump to a larger part of that organization. Have we finally got a credible competitor to Cisco? Have we been talking about a competitor for Cisco forever? And they've kind of dominated that space. So I think Juniper's putting Cisco on notice. What will be the combined HPE assets with Juniper kind of gives us a really sort of end-to-end. Juniper was more core, HP was more edge. Now you throw those two together, you end up with a bigger scale. One thing we don't always talk about is HP's probably got the best reseller channel in the market. So being able to put that combined portfolio through that channel. Still Proliant, that's a $10 billion a year business. So there's huge in servers. And then when you put the sort of and storage, obviously, you put that GreenLake wrapper and some of the operational tools. Is that a one-stop shop for an infrastructure executive? Maybe. But it's certainly the HP can have a lot of that conversation with a CTO or a infrastructure exec and say, we got servers, we got storage, we got the operations, we can connect it to a network, all that coming together. That's a pretty compelling story for me. I mean, obviously there's competition and other people who can do that, but HP's got a pretty comprehensive portfolio.
And forgive me because I get confused because there were so many mergers, reverse mergers and all of that. Do they still have the services piece to it?
Yeah, they do. There's a really good friend of mine, actually, who I worked with 20 years ago, a lady called Sue Preston, who based out of...
I interviewed Sue Preston for Sustainability.
What a wonderful lady.
Yes.
So we worked together in 1999. She's from the same part of the UK as me. Sue's an absolute legend. Yeah. So I think investing from a services point of view as the thin end of the wedge to be able to implement that entire portfolio, absolutely got a strong services. Is it a full IBM consulting style kind of consulting organization? Probably more what I'd describe it as is a SWAT team to get you going, and then you'd work with a GSI.
There are two other pieces to HP. I mean, Stephen Foskett mentioned OpsRamp, but that gave him an AI ops platform to kind of automate much of that flow. And we forgot Aruba is floating around in the HPE system.
Well, I would imagine that becomes part of your network stuff, right?
Yes.
Is it still called Aruba?
It is called Aruba. They run it as a separate company. The Aruba Juniper piece, they haven't obviously told us how they're going to pull those two pieces together, but Phil Mottram runs that Aruba business. So that's going to be interesting to understand the plan. I mean, for me, Aruba's more your private 5G, your Wi-Fi 6, your kind of edge. You bring that with the Juniper core stuff. That's going to give them a really comprehensive portfolio.
And remember, Aruba includes Silver Peak as well. So, there's a lot more capability there. Also, I just have to say the word 3Com. I worked at 3Com in the 90s, and they went to HPE as well. But let me get it back to Morpheus, though, because I think that this is one of the interesting angles here. Morpheus was a smaller company. They were a startup, venture funded, scrappy, kind of fun and cool. But the crazy thing about Morpheus is that their product was most attractive to the biggest enterprise customers. And in fact, Morpheus was really defying the odds for a small startup because they were attracting these big logos, big names to basically standardize on their platform. And why? Well, I think this tells the strategic tale of why HPE acquired them. Morpheus was founded to basically, like you guys mentioned, to bridge the gap between various different places that you can run applications, whether it's on-prem, whether it's hybrid cloud, whether it's the various hyperscalers. And they've actually remained true to that right to this day. The whole point of Morpheus is to kind of overcome the problem, that sort of Uber cloud, super cloud, meta cloud problem of the fact that everywhere you run your application, you've got different services, you've got different capabilities, and yet developers just want sort of a consistent environment to run their applications. That's what Morpheus does. And if you think about that, and then you think about these GreenLake customers and the customers that HPE has, like Mr. Dickens was mentioning, the incredible distributor network that they have, the incredible client network that they have, Morpheus fits right in there. This tool punches way above its weight. And I think in the hands of HPE, this tool is really going to punch above its weight.
Excellent. Stephen, I had to laugh. I almost heard those modems beeping when you mentioned 3Com.
Hey, I actually came to 3Com by way of US Robotics. I actually
really? You're a real modem head.
for US Robotics in the 56K modem world. At 3Com bought us, and then everything changed. So yes, I hear those in my sleep.
I'm still waiting on that prediction that Bob Metcalf made about the internet crashing any day now.
Yeah. Well, you can get an AOL disk with that too. Man, that brought back memories. We did a roll-up back in the .com. We were buying web hosting companies. And, not every web hosting company was, they weren't all high-end. And we'd go into some of these quote-unquote data centers, and they'd have baker's racks, we called them, filled of 3Com or US Robotics even before that. Modems, and that's how they connected. It was, Anyway, I'm glad we're not there anymore, though. Thank God. But congratulations again to the Morpheus folks. I think, anytime you get an acquisition by a big company with a startup, there's a cultural fit or misfit, and you've got to give it time to gel and see how it goes. But like Stephen Foskett says, this could be a great thing for Morpheus. And
Last question, Mr. Dickens. Are you making any predictions about the next acquisition for HPE? It seems like they're starting to be on a roll.
Well, they seem to be on two vectors. It's building out the GreenLake platform and it's networking. Those seem to be where they're going. The only other one that would maybe be on the prediction from me would be something in the storage space. So I think, but I would expect them to continue to do what I describe as a tuck-in. I think Morpheus is a tuck-in into this kind of overall management stack. So I think more work there. So if I got to pick bets, it would be tuck-in acquisitions for GreenLake. Once they've ingested Juniper, then it'd be looking for tuck-ins around the networking space. But my wild card would be storage. Are they going to look to make an acquisition there in the storage space? So those, you heard it here first, Mike.
Absolutely.
I would add one thing to that. HPE was hanging around Black Hat, and they're talking about converging networking and security. So they might roll up a couple of security.
There are security companies for sale. No lack of that. Anyway, okay, we're going to take a break here on The Gang. We're going to come back, and Bonnie's going to address some rumors floating around of a refresh on the Apple Mac Mini. That and more. You're watching Techstrong Gang.
Cloud Native Now is the web's leading resource for the growing cloud native ecosystem. CloudNativeNow.com is your destination for news, thought leadership, features, and webinars on cloud-native architecture, Kubernetes, serverless, cloud-native application development, microservices, service mesh, cloud-native security, and more. Stay on the cutting edge of modern application development at Cloud Native Now.
Welcome back to the Techstrong Gang. Well, rumors are always around. We don't know if they're true or not, but they're fun to talk about. When it comes to Apple, the Mac Mini, according to Bloomberg, is set for a redesign. And this redesign is rumored to be even more mini. But is it going to be more sustainable? I decided to take a closer look.
Hi, I'm Bonnie Schneider with your EcoTech Analyst Insights. The Apple Mac Mini is reportedly going to see a major redesign. That's according to Bloomberg. Apple's current Mac Mini already boasts impressive eco-credentials. It consumes 55% less power than Energy Star requirements and incorporates 100% recycled aluminum. But the rumored redesign implies less material use, potentially lowering its overall carbon footprint. The integration of the AI-forward M4 chip could enable better power management. For example, if the Mac Mini handles more local processing tasks, it could reduce its reliance on cloud computing for certain applications. The redesign also offers the opportunity to rethink packaging and shipping. A more minute Mini means less units per shipment, potentially reducing transportation-related emissions. However, the new Mini's reduced size could impact its repairability. If it becomes harder for users to perform upgrades, that limits the ability to extend their device's lifespan. There may also be issues managing its thermal environment. Apple has already implemented effective heat management in the current Mac Mini. The challenge for the redesigned one will be maintaining or even improving upon its temperature regulation within a tighter enclosure. Ultimately, anticipation for a redesigned Mac Mini will only build in the coming months. Apple's latest innovation has the potential to demonstrate how cutting-edge technology and sustainability can coexist in a compact, high-performance device.
So one of the challenges I mentioned in the video, but it's interesting to think about, if it's smaller, is that going to make it more difficult to repair? Is that going to change the end-of-life process, keeping it more sustainable? So these are some unknowns, just as the rumor is, but it's something to keep an eye on. And earlier in our last segment, we were talking about HP, which is a company that's very big on having a circular process and prolonging the life of hardware. So for the new Mac Mini, we'll be looking to see if that's going to be the case too. But I mentioned that they're smaller in size. Just logically, they're going to take up less space as they'd be shipped to customers. So it's something to watch out of curiosity and also out of sustainability.
So I think it's interesting is, look, running the Apple Silicon, which is an ARM architecture at the end of the day, is it, does that simplify the internal circuits and so forth that allow them to miniaturize like this? But the other thing is AI, right? I think that's going to be, assuming the rumors are true, there is a new Mac Mini coming out. I think, the ability to do AI on silicon there, on local, not on the cloud, is going to be a thing. And we've heard about Apple Intelligence on the iOS and all of that, but is there going to be some sort of super duper AI capability built into Apple Silicon that'll show itself in the Mini?
That's what they were talking about, at least with the rumors.
I hear all this stuff about AI at the edge and all that. That's fine, but Mr. Dickens, I'll go to you with this, but when I looked at the Apple announcements, it was like, yeah, we're running all this stuff locally, but the minute you have an issue, you're going to make a call out to the cloud. And it looked to me like Apple is starting to become a cloud service provider, and they're using AI as kind of their first step into that space.
Starting?
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing, Alan. I mean, I think for me, the Mini, it's a great little device. What's the use case? Is it a computer where you don't need a screen? Is that really the use case? I'd like to see Apple really doing something in the home. They've missed the smart devices market. They've had a sort of speaker with Siri. It was way too expensive. Amazon and Google have kind of cleaned their clock on that market. I'd love to see Apple in the home. What is it in the US? 50% plus market share with the phones. I'm recording this on a Mac. I just love them to finally compete. Are they doing something with TV? We've heard about that for years. What am I going to connect this Apple Mini to? Probably a TV. Amazon's cleaning their clock with Fire TV. I'm really getting frustrated with Apple. I've been a long time Apple user. I've got an Apple. I was third generation iPhone, and I've got a 15 Pro Max. So I'm a fanboy on the technology. Just want them to spend some of that huge cash pile and actually innovate. Get into edge devices, get into the home, get into hi-fi, get into TV. Actually do something rather than shaving, 1 millimeter off the phone and making the next phone thinner. You've got fantastic silicon, you've got Siri, you've got Apple Intelligence coming. Just innovate, Apple. Tim Cook, the last thing you did for innovation was AirPods.
So, Stephen, I'm also an Apple fanboy. Steven Dickens. I'm a fan. I got my watch. I've got the same. Well, I don't have the Pro Max. I have the Pro. I don't like the Max form factor. But look, at home, I'm an Apple TV house. I probably have 4 or 5 of them. I think Apple TV is the best streaming device compared to Roku, Fire, or any of the others. But I do agree with you. They missed. I thought they would. I think Sonos is a great acquisition for them. It's that same culture. I think that would be a
the
great.
last acquisition they did was Beats.
Yeah,
and that was
I
$3
agree.
billion.
Now they came
ago.
out with the goggles, and we haven't heard much from there. A $3,500 goggle is a pretty expensive. But what's interesting, there's almost a I call it a dumbbell missing piece of it here, because they're missing that home piece that you say, Stephen. But they're also they're still missing the server market. They're still missing the data center. And they don't want to be in it, they say. I get that. But when you talk about having powerful computers that don't have monitors with them, that says data center to me. Now, I'll tell you, we have some of our AV team here uses Apple Minis because you know what? It is a really powerful little footprint with a powerful combination of RAM and CPU, and you want to hook an Apple monitor up if you feel like backing the Brinks truck up and buying one, or you want to hook another monitor up. It makes for a great workstation to do video editing. Which, look, if you go back to traditional Mac, right, graphics work, doing graphics work, and that's kind of what it does. But that's a very niche market.
I mean, you mentioned Sonos. I'd love Tim Cook to get the checkbook out. Go buy Sonos.
I think it's for sale.
Yeah, go buy Sonos. Go buy whoever the best smart home hub. Go buy that. Go buy the business off Philips, off Siemens, off Honeywell. Like, just go and drop 30 billion of your cash fund that is sitting there and go and do something in this market.
Oh my gosh. You're cracking me up, Stephen. You are cracking me up. There is no home server, home hub.
I'm not talking server. I'm talking about devices.
Nobody. There has never been a home automation market. I am a home automation enthusiast. I am a contributor to Home Assistant. Home Assistant is far and away the number one home automation platform, and it is a open source. It's a wonderful open source community. It is very small dollars. I think Apple is a master at seeing when there is a market and when there isn't a market. People like to say Apple is behind on AI. They say that they're behind on home, behind on audio, behind on servers, behind on all these other things. But are those actually markets? Are those? I mean, servers, sure, but not Apple's market. The problem is, why would they buy Sonos? Why would they want yesterday's technology when everything is moving to Matter as a new protocol now in the home? Why would they want to buy, I don't know, whatever, Philips or something like that, when it's never really made a dime for any of those companies. They wouldn't. The truth is Apple is waiting for there to be a real market, and they're trying to seed that market. If you don't, and I'm not saying this to you because I know you know about it, but if people listening don't know about Matter and Thread and where that's going, it's very exciting, but it's also very nascent. It's not really a market yet, and maybe it'll get there.
But Apple's got my point here, Mr. Foskett, is Apple's got the ecosystem. Why that stuff's not taken off into the mainstream is because it's not simple, it's not beautifully designed, and it's not elegant. What is Apple really good at? That's what Apple's good at. If I had a smart thermostat system, if I had a smart speaker system in my home, and if I could connect it all to a Mac Mini and it all looked beautiful, would I buy it? Would everybody else buy it? I think they would. The one that gets me is flip phones. If Apple could develop a flip phone, you're telling me that people wouldn't buy it?
No.
Just innovate on form factor. Just do something. Johnny Ives is rolling in his grave.
He's not quite dead yet.
He's not dead, but he's there's just no innovation. He invented
there is. I look. The goggles was the big thing they came out with.
$3,500. Really?
They are replacing the goggles, so they have new goggles coming.
They have new goggle 2.
Not yet announced, but coming.
I mean, Steve Foskett, like you, in my house, I have Google Nest and thermostats and smoke and CO2, carbon monoxide detectors. I have Ring for the security, visual security around the house, and doorbells. I have Alexa. As a matter of fact, I just bought the new Alexa 15-inch.
Oh, wow.
Which is a really cool. That's my kind of home hub, and I it's really nice. But I use that. I probably have 20 plus Sonos devices in my house, and as I said, 4 or 5 Apple TVs. Wow. I haven't seen one company that's going to convince me to consolidate.
And the trouble is that, Alexa looks attractive. They've sold a lot of them. They're inexpensive. But by all accounts, including Amazon's public information, they have lost billions of dollars.
Oh, no doubt.
The Alexa home audio, because they're selling these things below cost. They're trying to subsidize them. They're trying to do anything. And frankly, now that Gen AI is here, all that work that they put into Alexa is just down the toilet. It's a terrible, horrible market. And I'm glad that Apple didn't pour billions of dollars into a loser like pre-Matter home assistant or home automation and so on. I would love to see them do this. I would love to see them, to Dickens' point, I would love to see them make a beautiful, works with everything, incredible system. Right now, the technology just isn't there. The community just isn't there. And they're trying to build that. And it's the same. I mean, if we can get back to Bonnie's story here with the Mac Mini too, I really think that Apple has put together an incredible platform with the M4. I've got the M4 iPad Pro. Geekbench just released their AI benchmarks, and it shows just how much faster the M4 is than the M1, M2 in terms of inferencing on AI. Spoiler alert, it's like 8 times faster than the previous platforms with inferencing. So get me that Mac Mini. I would love to use it on my desktop. I'd love to have Apple Intelligence. I think Apple in AI is showing us how Apple does new markets. They wait, they make it something useful, they integrate it, they make it profitable, and then they get into the market instead of jumping in with both feet and throwing billions of dollars at nothing.
There you have it.
Well said.
Well said. Hey, we're about out of time. I want to give a special heads up. I don't know if it'll be amended to this Techstrong Gang show or it'll be on the Techstrong TV broadcast following Gang today. But we have Daniel Newman, CEO of Futurum Group, who's going to give his take on the AMD deal announced yesterday. And then I think tomorrow on the Gang, Mike, we're going to dive in deeper on that here. And I think, Steve Dickens, you're coming on to join us with that as well.
2 days running. What have I done to be so lucky?
Absolutely.
Yeah, but we're going to talk about that on tomorrow as well on the Gestalt IT Rundown. So it's big news.
Good stuff. All right. But for now, that's going to end today's gang. Stephen and Stephen. Makes no difference which one goes first here. Thank you for joining us. A pleasure, as always, to have you on the gang. Bonnie, Mike, great to have you. Most of all, great to have you out there watching. We hope you've enjoyed this, gang. We'll be back tomorrow with more. Stay tuned for Techstrong TV. We've got a lot of great content today. But for now, this is Alan Schimmel, and we're out.
I'm Bonnie Schneider, sustainability contributor to the Techstrong Group. I'm excited to introduce you to a groundbreaking new initiative from Techstrong Research, the Sustainability Pulse Meter. The Pulse Meter offers valuable insights into how environmental responsibility factors into tech purchasing decisions for key players in the industry. Position your company as a leader in the industry and differentiate from your competitors with the Sustainability Pulse Meter, offered exclusively from Techstrong Research.